Valal Mogulis. Hey guys, what's up? And today I'm gonna do a review on the 6th season of one of the best TV shows on the planet, Game of Thrones. Okay, it's gonna take some effort, but I'm gonna try to recap all the last 5 seasons without spoiling too much. Also, if you want to save your time and actually know more about the previous seasons and get recapped, watch the recap video I made. First of all, we have the good guys from House Stark, including Bastard Jon Snow, who joined the Night's Watch and became Lord Commander, and adopted son Theon Greyjoy, who betrayed House Stark and sacked Winterfell, but later got captured by Ramsay Snow. Meanwhile, we have the bad guys of House Lannister, except for Jaime and Tyrion. They are the good guys of the Lannisters. All Lannisters are pretty bad, and they are holding the throne. After Stannis Baratheon failed fighting the Lannisters, they marched to the wall and met Jon Snow. Then we have Bran Stark and Hodor. After escaping Winterfell from Theon in Season 2, they made it to the north and find the Three-Eyed Raven. Meanwhile, Tyrion sent Brienne and Podrick to find Arya and Sansa after Joffrey got poisoned, but Arya got away and went to Braavos and reunited with the Faceless Man, while Sansa escaped with Peter Baelish, but Peter returned to King's Landing, so Sansa was married to Ramsay Snow. And then in King's Landing, High Sparrow was still imprisoning Queen Marjorie and his brother Loras Tyrell. Myrcella, who was a Lannister princess, got poisoned in Dorne because Ellaria Sand wanted revenge for his headless husband, Oberyn, who got killed by the Lannisters defending Tyrion. And because, people think Tyrion poisoned Joffrey, but Tyrion actually didn't. And then Tyrion and Varys escaped to Essos because Jaime freed him, and Tywin, his dad, wants him dead. Alright, I can't do this anymore. There's so much to recap. Fun fact, George R.R. Martin wrote the first 5 books in time, but haven't written the 6th one yet. So this season is off the books. It's finally off the books, and is written solely for television. Because the producers of the show know that Season 5 is a relatively weak season, so they made a historical cliffhanger, and it was Jon Snow's fate. The show immediately resumed from where it last left off on episode 1, The Red Woman. And all of a sudden, the script is way smoother than it was because, again, it's a pure television screenplay. First of all, I like how David Benioff and D.B. Wise heard our complaints concerning the Sand Snakes last season and solved the problem by showing what the Sand Snakes can do on this episode. Also, Davos was always under Stannis' orders in the previous seasons, and to see Davos lead and plan is brilliant. And Arya was still blind, and she was getting more unfair treatments from the waif. So yes, I'm still rooting for Arya so hard. Tyrion and Varys didn't do much in Meereen, except there's a fire, so there's that. But that's nothing compared to everything else. And I really love the scene where Brienne intervened the Bolton army and rescued Sansa. 4 characters from 4 different storylines emerged into one storyline. So I'm pretty damn excited. And I appreciate how the writers don't follow the rule of making a big scene for the ending anymore, so the story could be more creative. It's not a strongest start, but it's a promising start. Really promising. Right next is episode 2, Home. Oh my gosh, I love this episode so much. After watching, this episode immediately fell into my top 10 Game of Thrones episodes list. What a solid episode. This episode title isn't appealing at all, however. There are many episodes that are called Home, from The X-Files, to The Following, to The Good Wife, to ER, to Supernatural, to Star Trek, Battle Galactica, Rome, etc. And now we have Game of Thrones, Home. First of all, the writers still remember Bran Stark and Hodor. Seeing Bran again the first time since the children was quite amazing. Seeing the characters of Ned and Hodor when they were young is also quite cool. And then we have the normal scene like Tommen apologizing to his mom, Cersei, like Theon talking to Sansa emotionally, like Tyrion meeting the dragons, like Arya still being blind. Those scenes are okay. And then I'm giving a spoiler alert because there is a reason. Before I talk about this episode spoiler, I just want to address that on the previous episode on the Red Woman, I thought Trystane was gonna have an epic fight scene, but it went terribly anticlimactic, which isn't a big problem, but I want to see him fight. Anyway, first I knew Roose Bolton would die at some point, but I never expected Ramsay to just stab him. And then Ramsay also killed Roose's wife and his own brother, so yes, I hate Ramsay more than Joffrey. Second, we have a Pike scene. Balon Greyjoy suddenly saw a guy on a bridge and the guy pushed him off and killed him. Well, that's pretty strange. All these scenes showed us that if Jon Snow is really dead, then Ramsay would become Warden of the North, and it's bad. And at the end, Melisandre tried to revive Jon Snow, which was hopeful at first, but she failed. So it was sad and anticlimactic. And suddenly, Jon Snow just woke up and it's happy ending. It's finally a happy ending in Game of Thrones, and damn, I am happy. Moving on to Episode 3, Oathbreaker. It's a pretty slow at first, but it's very satisfying at the end. Arya became stronger and tougher as no one, which is cool to see. Maisie Williams acted better than I expected, so props to Arya and Maisie Williams, who's playing Arya. And then we have some humor with Tyrion and Peter Dinklage's famous line, "The wise masters of young Kai and the benevolent." And then we have a really gratifying ending scene. There's a death scene, and I never expected the death scene to be this ugly and graphic, because death is very simple and clean. But of course, you can't end an episode with a little bit of sadness. So yeah, if you still don't know if Jon Snow is alive or not, I don't suggest you watching the rest of this video, because everything about Jon Snow on this season is really unpredictable. Then it's Episode 4, Book of the Stranger. First of all, the reunion scene in the beginning of the episode is really touching. It is rare for two Starks to meet each other again, especially when they're from different storylines. I also quite enjoyed the scenes in Meereen, where Tyrion was trying to do things in his own way, but Missandei and Grey Worm disagreed with Tyrion. Theon returning to Pike is another great scene. I really wish Yara would treat him better, given the fact that Theon had been through too much. Cersei was also working with Olenna Tyrell to plot against High Sparrow. Both High Sparrow and Cersei are antagonists, so I really don't know which side should I root for. But I love how the show makes us root for the Starks again, because the Starks and the Boltons are gonna have a war, and we hate Ramsay, so the tension is slowly building up. After watching Episode 5, The Door, the episode immediately landed in my top 5 favorite Game of Thrones episodes. First, since there's not much happening in Pike, the writers added a new villain to the story. Theon and Yara were running away from their murderous uncle, Euron. And also, it's good to see Theon being respected. Then we have Arya watching plays in Bravos. If there's one character who has no idea on what happened in Westeros, and it is Arya. She doesn't know about the Boltons, the Martells, the Tyrells, Theon's betrayal, Jon Snow getting killed, Walk of Shame, etc. So making Arya watch a play will certainly refresh her knowledge a little bit. Then we have the ending scene. Oh shit. I'm giving a spoiler alert. I'm sorry, there's gonna be a lot of spoiler alerts. So Bran went into a vision accidentally, and in the vision he saw the Night King touch him and left a mark on him. Therefore the Night King could reach Bran in reality. I mean, in the story, not in our real lives. So Mira and Hodor helped getting Bran away while the three-eyed raven got killed. Jeez, and so after all the fighting, Summer the direwolf was dead, and then Mira and Hodor continued to carry Bran away. It was really intense and suspenseful, and also very tragic. So they were in the cave while the White Walkers were in the cave. Mira and Bran escaped the cave through a back door, so Hodor had to hold the door to give time for Bran to escape. Mira was yelling, "Hold the door!" And Bran heard it and warged into Hodor, except Bran was in a vision and he's warging into the young version of Hodor. So Hodor held the door, and the young Hodor had a Caesar and yelled, "Hold the door!" And as Hodor got killed by White Walkers, the young Hodor became Hodor. Not only did we witness a sad death, and I almost shed a tear, but through his death we finally learned about Hodor's origins, and that is some great writing done by David Benioff and D.B. Weiss and George R.R. Martin. Over to episode 6, Blood of My Blood. The episode picks up where it last left off because it's David Benioff and D.B. Weiss writing, not GRRM. Usually the story doesn't immediately resume in the previous seasons. Bran and Mira was having a hard time. They were surrounded, assumably dead. Then some mysterious guy came out and saved them, which is something I've already seen before like a million times, and I already knew who's that mysterious guy when I heard his voice. But it's still pretty cool. And the ending was also quite underwhelming. Daenerys suddenly showed up with a dragon and gave another epic speech. We've all seen that, so... But what's interesting is, I thought Arya got blinded. She's gonna truly obey the Faceless Man, but she's still hesitating and having second thoughts, which also indirectly builds tension between the waif and Arya. And no, Margaery didn't do the Walk of Atonement, but instead Tommen was convinced by Margaery, so Tommen actually sided on High Sparrow instead of his parents, so that's pretty unexpected. Still, High Sparrow is better than Cersei in my opinion, but no matter what, I still root for Margaery and Tommen. They are amazing characters. Then the story progresses on to episode 7, The Broken Man. Another slow-paced, funny little episode that tells a lot of the minor plot lines, while it's pretty much fillers for the major plot lines. For example, Jon Snow trying to find allies to fight the Boltons. The new character of Lyanna Mormont is introduced, and wow, she is a badass girl. What a ferocious lady. And then we have Theon and Yara going to somewhere we never expect them to go, and planning to do something exactly like what Tyrion and Varys planned to do after Tyrion escaped. Margaery was still playing her role, acting like she's obeying the High Sparrow, but nothing too dramatic so far. Arya had an insane scene, and it was thrilling, but it didn't come to any conclusion. So this episode is... Alright, there's a lot to talk about on episode 8, No One. First of all, the Brotherhood Without Banners returned, and it's pretty good, it's promising. Then we have the Siege of Meereen, which ended in an anticlimactic way. Missandei, Tyrion, and Grey Worm were stuck in the pyramid, while Meereen was in chaos. Then suddenly something happened and Daenerys showed up. It's cool and all, but it's also a bit, well, predictable. Then there's the Siege of Riverrun, and again it turned out anticlimactically. But what's good about the scene is it's pretty much what would really happen if it takes place in the history in real life. So I don't hate this episode, but what they did with Arya's storyline, such a bummer. So in case you aren't caught up, I'm giving a spoiler alert again. Arya was in a pretty bad condition last episode. She was stabbed in the gut a few times, but she managed to run away. Then, on this episode, she suddenly showed up and got help from Lady Crane. So we all assume that she's gonna heal and run back to Westeros immediately. By judging by her actions, she probably had a plan to kill the waif. But the writers planned to heal Arya by making her sleep it off. And then when the waif showed up, Arya had nothing better to do than to run. I mean, I love the chase scene, it's intense, but wouldn't it be better if Arya was more well prepared and confident? But Arya was stabbed a few times and she's healed now. And then the wave chased down Arya like a Terminator, and Arya lured her into a room and things happened and we didn't even get to see it. And then it is revealed that the waif actually died on the next scene. And then Arya roasted the faceless man and ran away. The end. So in short, the last scene could have been something more dramatic. It could have been more sensible. It could have made way more sense. But the writers just executed it in such a nonsensical way that made this episode a pretty screwed up one. What a bummer. But get your hopes up. Moving on to episode freaking 9, Battle of the Bastards. Ugh, oh my gosh. As far as I can tell, this is the best TV episode I've ever watched so far in my lifetime. Seriously, not even exaggerating. This episode is this good. Sorry, I haven't watched Breaking Bad Season 5, but right now, this episode holds the crown for being the best TV episode in my opinion. Not one single shot in this episode is not shocking and intense and suspenseful. All the scenes from start to finish completely blew my mind away. The heavy and intense Daenerys scenes really satisfied us, the viewers, and it was epic. But what's more epic than the battle scenes? The second half is all given to the Starks versus Boltons war, a war we've all been waiting for. The fight sequences are unbelievably impressive. One of the most impressive things are shooting a fight sequence in a long take. They literally practiced every single shot for weeks after weeks, and it's not just a couple of main characters. It's 100, 1,000 men fighting in precision. Those flashy shots and slow motion scenes really gave me chills. They made the scenes more epic and intense. Trust me, I've never witnessed something so dramatic and powerful before. I'm giving a spoiler alert. First of all, the Daenerys scenes. Oh shit. It starts off with Meereen in chaos, which could have just ended easily by burning everyone down, but Tyrion stopped Daenerys from doing that. And then Daenerys, Grey Worm, Missandei, and Tyrion had an appointment with 3 slave masters. And suddenly Drogon appeared and Daenerys rode him away and burned down all the ships. And then Grey Worm just sliced the master's throat and spared one of them because he's a badass. And the entire Dothraki horde charged towards the Sons of the Harpy, with Dario decapitating one of them with a scythe. We're off to an epic start. Then Theon and Yara made an agreement with Daenerys and Tyrion. Something I've never expected in the beginning of the show, but also something I would love to see. And then the battle. Jeez, it's dissected to so many small parts. And the best thing about this battle is it's not a siege. Unlike the Battle of Blackwater, unlike the Battle of the Wall, this one is a battle on the field. It all started with Rickon's death, because he doesn't know how to run zigzag. Like, if I were Rickon, I would just run zigzag. So Ramsay shot him, and Jon Snow was so mad, and so was I. Of course, Rickon is the least significant Stark, but still, a Stark dying. Just stop, please. Then the epic moment where Jon Snow raised up his sword against the 100 and 1,000 of horses, and suddenly the horses was about to approach Jon and bumped into the Stark horses, and the whole army just clashed into each other, and the whole thing became a mess. It started to feel more realistic without the musical score. Bullets, arrows, and horses are like bullets and tanks. And then the second part of the war began when the Bolton army surrounded the Stark army and slowly closed in. Another hardcore war strategy. Then the Arryn army charged in with Littlefinger and Sansa, and I was blown away. I was seriously shocked. And then the last part of the battle is Ramsay running back to Winterfell and Jon Snow charging from behind. After the death of 1-1, Ramsay wanted to shoot Jon Snow with arrows, but Jon Snow blocked all of it with a Mormon shield. And then Jon Snow beat Ramsay up, and I was very, very happy. I cheered when I saw the Bolton banner go down and the Stark banner go up. And it was really crazy that Sansa was actually the one who indirectly killed Ramsay. You would never expect Sansa to do such thing when you're watching season 1, so whew. At long last, it's episode 10, The Winds of Winter. Insane things happened, and those insane scenes came scene by scene. Not only that, but this episode managed to get all the main characters appear on the episode without making it too messy or choppy. It's not as intense and as epic as the last episode, but this one is hard-hitting, heart-trenching, devastating, yet beautiful and moving. From King's Landing all the way to Meereen, from Dorne all the way to Beyond the Wall. Everything that happened on this episode is spectacular and unbelievable. This episode is basically a big massacre in all storylines. All the useless, all the small characters were killed. So I'm giving a spoiler alert. Again. Alright. First of all, the episode started with some classical inspired piano as the soundtrack. And I have never heard piano on the show before, so something is going wrong. Then Loras was on trial, and he confessed and blah blah blah, so it was going fine, right? Wrong. Pycelle got stabbed by a few kids, and Cersei burnt down all the wildfire under the Sept of Baelor, and causing the entire Sept to blow up. And the bell, did you see the bell? It just flew away and crashed down into King's Landing. High Sparrow, Mace, Loras, and Marjorie Tyrell, Kevin Lannister, all burnt to death. Are you shitting me? And Septa Unella was tortured, and Tommen committed suicide. Gosh, Cersei is such an evil woman. And by the way, I swear I've seen a scene so similar to Tommen's suicide scene. It was a black and white movie. I've seen it somewhere, but I don't know which movie. Another great scene is Davos forcing Melisandre to admit burning Shireen alive in front of Jon Snow. I'm glad Jon Snow spared her life, but Melisandre really deserved to be exiled in the south, because, come on, burning Shireen? Seriously? That's unforgivable. Sansa and Jon Snow's conversation was emotional, and I toasted when Sansa said, "Winter is here." Olenna Tyrell, the Sand Snakes, and Varys met up and teamed up to go against Cersei, which is something I really want to see. And then Arya cooked Walder Frey a pie made out of his sons, and then slit his throat. This scene is both gross and rewarding. Arya finally got her well-deserved revenge. But another problem rises. Like, how the hell did Arya... Okay, first of all, Arya rode a horse from the pier to the twins and then secretly kill off 2 Freys, and then she also killed the cook, and then she wore the cook's face, and then she cooked the pie in the kitchen and she served Walder Frey. That's really complicated, so it doesn't make much sense, but it's a great scene overall. I hope they will explain this more on Season 7. And then Bran did some warging and found out that Jon Snow is a son of Rhaegar Targaryen and Lyanna Stark, and that was unexpected. Lyanna Mormont's speech was amazing. She's such an honorable lady, and the King of the North scene was really touching, and again, King of the North. But I didn't cheer when Cersei became the queen and Jaime wasn't pleased. But the episode ended in the most satisfying way when Daenerys, Tyrion, Missandei, Varys, and Theon and Yara sailed across the Narrow Sea. But also, I got another problem. How the hell did Varys go from Dorne to Meereen and now he's on the ship again? Teleportation, I guess. The finale was the most grandiose episode I've ever seen on the show. It's not as fantasizing and as mystical as Season 2's finale, it's not as game-changing as Season 4's finale, but it's grandiose, and that's the best way to wrap up a season. But indeed, a lot has changed in Season 6. Sansa, Jon Snow, Bran, Theon, Cersei, they all changed into a really different people. Arya also had an amazing character arc throughout the series, which I love. Although there's a bit of screw up in the storyline, but I think Arya can still be redeeming and likable. Yes, the story is a bit rushed, but it all paid off at the end because it all led up to those ultimate game-changing moments in the last 2 episodes. Although the season is not as good as Season 4 in my opinion, because Episode 6, 7, and 8 were a bit disappointing, but nonetheless Episode 9 and 10 saved this season and made it the best season, except Season 4. Every actor and actresses did an amazing job in playing their roles, most notably Peter Dinklage, Lena Headey, Alfie Allen. They are good at acting. Maisie Williams' acting performance is pretty decent too, actually. Steve Lowe, the guy who appeared on Jimmy Kimmel Live in impersonating Jon Snow, also made a funny cameo. A lot of entertaining and insane events happened, and I love it. The directing is incredible, and I'm looking forward to the next season. Sadly, the worst is Episode 8, No One, and the best is Episode 9, Battle of the Bastards. I'm saying Game of Thrones Season 6 is mind-blowing, and I'm giving it a 9 to a 10 out of 10. So, have you watched Game of Thrones Season 6? From 1 to 10, how much would you rate it? Like if you like, and subscribe if you want more. And anyway, Valar Dohairis.
Sebastopol, the wise masters of Yonkai, the benevolent enslavers of